Now for our feature story of the day, Bitcoin to explode by at least 975% to reach the ultimate price, says on-chain analyst Willy Woo. I'm going to be sharing with you his timeline he just recently shared. So here we go. Popular on-chain analyst Willy Woo is predicting that Bitcoin will ultimately hit a massive value for one key reason. He tells his 1.1 million followers on X that Bitcoin can capture 3% of the total wealth assets and soar more than 975% from the current value, quoting Willy Woo. Nobody knows what the ultimate price of Bitcoin will be, but simple math can give us an upper bound. All wealth assets is $500 trillion. If Bitcoin captured all of this, which is never going to happen, it'd be 24 million per coin, which is today's value before the future inflation adjustment. The question is, what will be the realistic allocation for everyone? Wealth management is very predictable, and money flows in a conservative manner according to known wisdom. Bitcoin, even in the early phase of an early or asset class, Fidelity recommends 1 to 3% allocation. And we have seen numbers as high as 85% from BlackRock. So if we assume 3% as a sensible allocation, then the lower bound of valuation is $700,000 per coin. So he's ultimately saying the bear scenario for the king with only a 3% allocation from the major asset managers into the biddy will take us to $700,000. If you want to calculate what an 85% allocation would do, whoa, I guess we can divide 85 by 3 and then multiply that and get an insane multi-million-dollar prediction, just FYI. Wu believes Bitcoin will hit the six-figure price target once the global adoption reaches somewhere between 16% and 50%. He says that the current Bitcoin adoption is only 4.7%. Meaning we're just getting started, quoting him here. So now everyone is asking when. This is also a well-known phenomenon via the adoption S-curve. 16% is early majority. 50% is late majority. Wealth management is somewhere in this sector. So figure out when Bitcoin adoption enters 16 to 50%, world adoption is based on the yellow line. Wu shares an adoption S-curve chart comparing the asset to the internet's adoption rate. The adoption S-curve is often used to track the cumulative rate at which people adopt breakthrough technologies. And I mean, look at that. You can see compared to the red line, which is the internet adoption, comparing to Bitcoin, which you can barely see in that red versus the yellow line, Bitcoin showing just 4.7%. We're just getting freaking started. And lastly, Wu says the Bitcoin's market cap could eventually exceed all fiat currencies and prompt investors to look for alternative, higher performing investments at that point. Quoting him again, once the price produces a market cap exceeding all the fiat in the world, you won't be interested in the ultimate price. That's a fiat mindset based on current realities. After the inflection point, you'll only be looking for investments that can beat BTC. For starters, these are companies that store their profits in BTC. Example, MicroStrategy founder and executive chairman Michael Saylor was the first publicly company CEO to figure this out, but a lot more coming. And here's the actual tweet that he shared. I want to read this actually out loud to you verbatim because this is word for word what he shared just the other day. Nobody knows what the ultimate price of Bitcoin will be, but simple math gives us the upper bound. All wealth assets, 500 trillion. So if Bitcoin captured all of this, which is never going to happen, it'd be 24 million per coin. Today's value before the future inflation adjustment. The question is, what will be the realistic allocation for everyone? Personally, I think 3% is very conservative. So that's a basis, what he is sharing here. Wealth management is very predictable and the money flows in a conservative manner according to known wisdom. Bitcoin, even in this early phase of an asset class, Fidelity recommends 1 to 3% allocation, while we have seen numbers as high as 84.9% from BlackRock. And I have covered this multiple times. That would take the Bitcoin price well beyond 10 million per coin. FYI, it may even take Bitcoin as high as 100 million per biddy, which means if you hold 10 Bitcoin, you may become a billionaire someday, if hypothetically that were to play out. But I digress. If we assume 3% as a sensible allocation, and I note that was the number we used to share back in 2014, then the lower bound of the valuation is $700,000 per biddy. Price target range, 700,000 lower bound, 24 million maximum bound. That's if everything went into Bitcoin, which clearly it probably more than likely never would. And that's in today's inflation adjusted numbers. Then he shared a little more insights here, as I shared regarding the Bitcoin adoption S-curve. Now everyone's asking when, the $1 million question, right? There's also a well-known phenomena via the adoption S-curve. 16% is early majority, 50% late majority. Wealth management is somewhere in the sector. So figure out when Bitcoin adoption enters the 16 to 50% world adoption based on this yellow line. So you already know, fam. And I think he also shared another post here. Once the price produces a market cap exceeding all the fiat in the world, you won't be interested in that 700,000 ultimate price. That's the fiat mindset based on the current realities. After this inflection point, also known as the tipping point, you'll only be looking for investments that can beat the biddy. For starters, these are companies that store their profits in the biddy. Saylor was the first publicly, CEO to figure this out, but a lot more coming. So there you have it, yo. Let me know if you agree or disagree with Willy Woo, and do you think the world will eventually put at least 3% of all the total assets in the world, total, I guess we call that total addressable market. Do you see that happening? 3%. And again, 3% will take us close to $1 million. Let me know your thoughts, and welcome, family, to the Q&A segment of the live show.